Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and to continue with the last video where we were talking about my favorite books for 2017, today we're going to be talking about my least favorite books for 2017. This is also, it's a top 10 video, but how we're gonna do it this time, we're gonna start with the not so bad books and then end off with my real least favorite book for 2017. The first book I want to talk about is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. This book is super popular. I rated this 2.5 stars on Goodreads. Basically, this book is about a boy named Jacob who discovers the body of his grandfather, and he just investigates like what happened to his grandfather, and that leads him to an abandoned orphanage in Wales, and things just aren't what they seem in this abandoned orphanage. And that's where the story takes off. And I picked it up because of the hype, and I just found it to be meh. Like, Jacob wasn't a bad character, he wasn't a good one either. Like, some things were fun. I really enjoyed the vintage photos that was intermingled along with the story, but I fully expected something more scary because of these vintage photos, and I just didn't get that. And the rest of the characters too were rather lackluster. Like, nobody was really bad and no one was really good. It was just meh. Next book I want to talk about is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I picked this up for Tome Topple. This book was almost like a companion piece to Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Fangirl is about a girl named Kath, and she's in college, and she's writing this fan fiction piece called Carry On. And this book is this fan fiction piece. It's a really, really slow beginning. And it makes sense because the first half of the book is world building for an entire series that doesn't exist. It's almost like picking up the 7th book to the Harry Potter series and not reading anything else that has happened. So it was a really, really slow beginning, and because it felt like I was just jumping into a middle of a series, I couldn't get invested in these characters. Things didn't get interesting till halfway through the book, and this is a 500-page novel. I picked it up for Tome Topple, so it is a thick lady. For such a big book, waiting to get halfway through the book to find anything interesting, that's just too long of a wait. And if I wasn't trying to complete a challenge for a readathon, I probably would have DNF'd this, to be honest. Again, I rated this 2.5 stars on Goodreads. And I didn't really give much of a synopsis for this. It's basically like the Harry Potter series. It takes place in a magical school with these two boys who are roommates that originally were enemies. It's as if Draco and Harry were roommates, were forced to be roommates, and then slowly fell in love. The third book I want to talk about for this video is a non-fiction book. It's 1001 Ways to Save Money and Still Have a Dazzling Wedding by Sharon Naylor. It was just like a bunch of tips and tricks to pinch pennies here, and in her mind, and still have a fabulous wedding. It's just, a lot of it was really unnecessary. It was repetitive. She kept saying the same tips for a lot of these things. It was mostly if you can do without, do without. If you can get someone to gift it to you as a wedding present, try to get them to do that. Thrift stores, getting it secondhand, and there was a 4th one that I'm missing. But she pretty much repeated these same 4 steps, and I was like, alright, well, I got all this. And one the tips, like, oh, get someone to give it to you as a wedding present. I'm like, I'm not gonna make someone let me. Obviously, I can't make anybody do anything, but I would have felt so uncomfortable asking someone, hey, can I hold my wedding in your backyard? And she got kind of judgy at certain places. She's like, it's tacky if you don't have an open bar. I'm like, I have a 10 a.m. wedding. I'm not paying for an open bar. If you want to drink, you can drink, but I'm not paying for it. And then I ended up rating this 2 stars on Goodreads, because there was a couple of helpful things. Like, if you're looking for pastel color flower girl dresses, just wait for the after Easter sales. I'm like, that's a smart thing, thank you. The next book is also a non-fiction self-help book. It's Act Now, A Step-by-Step Guide to Becoming a Working Actor by Peter Jazwinski. John and I had at this point finally made the decision that we're going to move out to California. If you're new here, yeah, I'm moving out to California. Isn't that exciting? And I was like, oh, let me like mentally prep to move out to California. And this was one of the things I picked up to do that. And it's really meant for if you're super brand new to the business and you absolutely have no idea what you're doing. And I've been at this for a while. I know I need a resume, headshot, demo reel. Always take classes, because if you're not working, you need to be taking classes. And just a lot of it I had already heard before, which is why I rated it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Oh, it's also very out of date. It was written, I want to say, in the 90s, and it was obvious that it was written in the 90s. But I did appreciate that the author was very sweet and very motivating. Like, you too can be an actor. You're already an actor. You got this, which was sweet. Now this next one I'm a little uncomfortable talking about here on BookTube, because this book is by a fellow smaller booktuber, by Sarah Ella. It's Unblemished by Sarah Ella. And I picked this up because I really wanted to support her and her writing. It's her debut novel. It's a YA fantasy book. And because it's YA fantasy, you think it'd be up my alley. I really wanted to like this, not gonna lie. The main character is Ileana, who finds out after the death of her mom that, which it's not spoiler, that she's really a part of another world. I'm reading my notes, bear with me. That she's actually part of this other world. The birthmark that she has is actually a mark that shows that she is meant to be the savior of this other magical world. And it's difficult for her to even think that she's special, or the mark on her face is special, because she has such anxieties and stuff, and being super self-conscious about the mark on her face. I didn't really like that the focus was all about this birthmark on her face. It made it sound like it was a bad thing, but still a good thing. I had a weird relationship with it. But she's supposed to save this world from this evil guy that's enslaved it. And so when this evil person tries to kidnap her from her world, she goes into this other world and joins the revolution. The pacing of the story was too fast. Not only was it too fast, but the author tried to be super like mysterious, like kind of giving hints here and then not really giving hints there. I don't think it translated well. The story did get better halfway through. It's cute, it's just not for me. And I rated this, I want to say 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next book I want to talk about is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This is like a YA Jack the Ripper retelling. Like obviously a fictionalized retelling of what could have been with Jack the Ripper. I thought the idea of it was cool, which is why I picked it up, and it had gotten quite a bit of hype on BookTube and at BookCon. The second book in the series, everyone wanted at BookCon, which like prompted me like, oh, maybe I should read the first book. Now, Audrey Rose, who's our main character, is a lord's daughter, and she like trains in secret to be in forensic medicine, which is not the thing for a lady to do. She's on the team that is investigating Jack the Ripper, and things go awry within their group, and she is responsible to try to figure out who this person could be. Audrey Rose infuriated the heck out of me. The author really bombarded the fact that she is a lady and she's not supposed to do this and she's not supposed to do that. And of course, the main character is super stubborn about these things, and she's like, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. She kept putting herself in such danger without a plan. So she needed to be rescued, which just compounded the stereotype that yes, she's a lady and she needs to be rescued. So it bothered me. And all the other characters I really wasn't crazy about either. I did appreciate that that the author gave a reasoning why Jack the Ripper was never unmasked. I thought that was cool that she kind of like put that into the story. But in the end, I did rate this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The next book I want to talk about, the next 2 books actually, are from the same period. I read these during Halloween, if you couldn't tell. The next book is Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. I love the show with David Suchet, and they did an episode on this. It's basically Poirot investigates the death of this little girl. She's drowned in a bobbing for apples bucket at a Halloween party, and this happens after she boasts that she once saw a murder. So Poirot is investigating, like, well, did she get killed because of this boast? Like, did she really see a murder? Is this someone who's killed before? So that's what the story revolves around. I loved Ariadne Oliver as a character. She's the writer friend, like the writer of Poirot, who reaches out to Poirot and asks him to investigate this murder since she was at attendance at this party and she feels responsible. And if you're not aware of the story or this character as a whole, Ariadne Oliver, it's a parody of Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie wrote herself into the book. And I loved this character, but everything else was meh. The story was just really, really dry, and it took me a while to get through it. So the story wasn't bad. I think it wrapped up really nicely. It was just dry, which is why I rated this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The next book I want to talk about is Welcome to Camp Nightmare by R.L. Stine. During the Halloween season, Richard Denny, who I want to say Richard Movie Freak now. I'll list his channel down below. He created a Goosebumps read a watch along-a-thon where he picks 3 Goosebumps books to read over a period of 3 weeks. So it's really low-key, and at the end of each week, after reading that particular book, we'd watch the Netflix show afterwards. The show's on Netflix, that's why I'm calling it the Netflix show. And Welcome to Camp Nightmare was one of those books. It was weird. Billy, who's our main character, attends a summer camp that his experiences go awry, and it turns out to be a horrifying experience. It's just, the ending made no sense to me. I had so many questions after reading this book, and it's really short. There's not a whole lot that happens because it is a middle grade horror book, but so many questions. Like, nothing was really satisfied for me, which is why I ended up rating this 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So we were down to the last 2 books, and they're both roughly 1-star ratings. This next book is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I actually talked about this book for a collab video, which of course I'll link down below. This is basically a Dracula retelling set in a Maine town with elements of Haunting of Hill House kind of like thrown in. I can tell you right now, the Haunting of Hill House bits were completely unnecessary. You could easily have taken that out. I'll give it to Stephen King that this world was very believable. I hated everybody, or mostly everybody. Everybody was so unlikable that it got to the point that I was rooting for the vampire. I really wanted the vampire to take some of these people out. But in regards to characters, there were just way too many of them. 3/4 of the way through the book, of this big book, because it's a Stephen King book, he was still introducing people. And at that point, I'm like, I don't need to know anybody. Let's just get on with the story. Just in general, a lot of what was happening in the book was completely unnecessary. Absolutely. I feel like had I edited this, I would have taken out so much and it would have been a much thinner book. There's a lot of trigger warnings associated with this book. There's rape, there's assault, there's homophobia. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of things. I feel like Stephen King wrote this book just for the sake to be like shocking for the sake of being shocking and not for actual like story value. There was one character that I loved. It was the priest, and his story was actually kind of heartbreaking, which is why I ended up rating this 1.5 stars on Goodreads, because that half star, that was for the priest. Everything else, like this book, can go below. And the last book I want to talk about is The Fairy Handbag by Kelly Link. I unhauled this. I hated this book so much. This is actually a little short story I got in association with the Boston Book Festival. Every year the festival gives out a short story. Like, I guess they have some sort of contest. They get a bunch of short stories and they publish one of them and they give them out for free. And I got one of these. It's basically about how this girl named Genevieve, her grandmother has a handbag, and her grandmother claims it actually houses a community of fairies. And the grandmother has all these stories associated with this handbag, and at one point Genevieve's boyfriend grabs the handbag and he starts going through it to see if there's any truth to these stories. the concept is cute, but the author tried to be far too like whimsical and intellectual at the same time. It was either too highbrow for me. I either didn't get it or it just didn't work. But in the end, I rated this 1 star. I was really glad it was short because I did not enjoy a second of this. This is actually my least favorite read, absolutely, for 2017. So that's all I have to talk about for this video. Mostly 2-star ratings, a lot of mehs. But those kind of reading experiences are the worst because you can't even like wallow in like self-righteousness and anger. You're kind of like, all right. It's just such a lackluster experience when it's mostly meh. What about you? What did you not enjoy reading in 2017? Feel free to talk about that down in the comments below. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!